For the last stage of our tooling project, you need a magazine again, and you need our plastic tools. You should only have two. So one is the liner tool. It looks kind of like a pencil on one end. The other one is the spatula tool. And this is the edge you're going to primarily use, not this flat piece at the back. We need your metal on the newspaper again. And what we're going to do today are two things. One is called chasing, and the other is called repousse. It's a French word. Chasing essentially means you're pushing in on your project. Repousse, you're making things pop up. So, for example, on our monster or alien or whatever creature you made, the body, you want most of that to pop up. And there might be some things that go in, like my mouth should go in, the face should come up. So in order to pop things up, you have to turn it over. I'm going to start in a small area. It's always good to start in a small space if you're nervous. And I'm going to use a spatula tool. And what I'm doing is I am gently rubbing on the metal repeatedly. It's like you're coloring inside the lines, but there's no color. And the more you rub, the more your metal is stretching. So if I pick this up and turn it over and get it in the light, you can see this is sticking up now. And to make that even more obvious, on the opposite side, that's where the chasing comes in. I can take this same tool and gently rub right beside my object, and that'll make this part go in just a little more. I'm trying to keep it gentle though, so then you can see how it pops. And then repeat. Now the liner tool, that's for making lines and for working in tiny areas. Like if I want this tiny little eyeball to stick out, I'm going to rub. Be super careful with the liner tool, because if you rub too much, you're going to stretch the metal and end up with a hole, and we can't fix that. So now the center of my eye sticks out a little more. So that's something to think about when you're doing this. Some things are going to stick out a little, some things are going to stick out a lot. I want my nose to stick out farther, so I'm going to try to rub that a little extra. As you're stretching the metal, you could get wrinkles. And if you rub the wrinkles a lot, what's going to happen is a hole. Now I did have some nostrils on there. I accidentally rubbed them off, so I can put those back in with the liner tool on the other side. So anything that needs to protrude, you rub on the back. If you need it to go in, then you rub on the front. So if I want my eye to go in a little more, I'm going to redraw this line. Gently rub. Another thing about when you're rubbing with the tools, this coloring can come off. So we want to be very careful. I've now gone through and made everything pop up that needs to on my little monster, but he doesn't have much texture. So when I did the horns, I had to go through and I rubbed the entire horn. It made my lines disappear. I had to make my lines reappear, so what I did was I used the pen tool and I drew them on this side, so now they pop out and have this interesting texture. If you wanted additional texture, like maybe he's got a studded leather belt, you can always take the pen tool and on the back side carefully stab without going too far. And then it gives you interesting texture on the front side. You can use the pen tool to draw lines. Maybe my monster has hairy knees. I can use lines to show the little hair on the knees. And I drew them on the back side instead of the front side. And if anything, if you've stretched as far as you can from the back side with the repousse technique, and you want it to pop more, then just work on chasing on the other side, where you're very carefully using the spatula and going around the object. And notice how I'm holding the spatula. I've got one finger on the end, gripping at the back. I'm not being super rough with it. So we want to avoid the wrinkles and avoid scratching metal. And of course, out here, especially the big sections, these are control panels, so you can use the liner tool to draw your little buttons and gadgets and gizmos. on the side of your box. And yes, those can pop out too. You don't need to draw anything in the four corners because those edges are going to get folded up later. And your name goes down here. This is reserved space for your name and your class at the bottom.